Good morning. It's my privilege to be here to speak on behalf of the Southern Delaware Alliance for Racial Justice, and also as a member of the coalition founded by Claire for Common Cause and Sherry for for Sierra Club Delaware. On July 13th, President Biden delivered an address on voting rights at the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia. His words are timely for our purposes today. His words are important, and his words bear repeating. Biden called the right to vote in America the test of our time. Addressing the big lie of election fraud that supports new voter suppression in, we now know, 48 states, he asked, are you on the side of truth or lies, fact or fiction, justice or injustice, democracy or autocracy? Biden called the state-led voter suppression effort the 21st century Jim Crow, and indeed that's what it is. These new laws ban or restrict voter registration, absentee voting, or vote by mail. They increase local officials' ability to purge voters from the lists of eligible voters. They limit hours for in-person voting. They reduce the number of in-person polling places. They impose criminal liability and huge fines on poll workers for simple mistakes. They change state authority for certifying elections to local partisan county officials. These restrictive voting provisions disproportionately affect people of color, the poor, and yes, even the middle class. They affect all of us. These are the people with long commutes, those having childcare or multi-generational care challenges and responsibilities, multiple jobs, mobility issues, healthcare issues, or business owners or first responders who work 12 or more hour shifts. These provisions affect the people who were considered the essential workers during the pandemic, who worked long hours and would not be able to take off from work to vote during the restrictive hours mandated by these new laws. If these are the citizens who have been described as forgotten, overlooked, and voiceless, what are the real reasons for supporting voting legislation that stops citizens from exercising the right to vote? What is gained from preventing certain classes of hardworking, law-abiding American citizens from voting? Or is the real question, who benefits from excluding certain groups of Americans from voting? These proposals are anti-democratic and are aimed at preserving the status quo in the states proposing them, because enlarging the right to vote and increasing voter turnout on these impacted voters might result in disrupting that status quo. And to further ensure that that doesn't happen, these enacted and proposed voter suppression laws are tinkering with the vote counting process to affect certification of elections. President Biden noted that these legislatures are taking the power to vote, to count the vote, from independent election administrators who work for the people and giving it to polarized state legislators and partisan actors who work for political parties. The For the People Act addresses these problems with provisions ensuring internet registration, automatic voter registration, same-day voter registration, voting by mail, and conditions on removal of voters from registration lists. To address concerns about voter fraud, it provides uniform requirements for paper ballots and addresses provisional ballots. You might ask, what does this have to do with Delaware? Our legislature is not proposing or enacting suppressive voting laws, but as Representative Rochester pointed out, our House of Representatives this spring refused to approve HB 75, the constitutional amendment that would remove the requirement for an excuse for absentee voting in our state. The excuses for absentee voting are actually prescribed in our Constitution. If you don't meet them, you can't have an absentee ballot. We can't vote by mail in Delaware. Although the legislature passed automatic voter registration, it did not act on a bill proposing same-day voter registration. The For the People Act addresses these deficits. It also requires independent redistricting commissions, instead of leaving the difficult task of redistricting after a census to the governor and the heads of our political parties. The For the People Act would provide a solution at the national level that would eliminate the need to fight the same battle for democracy in all 50 states. The Southern Delaware Alliance for Racial Justice supports the For the People Act and opposes suppressive voter state legislation, the 21st century Jim Crow, that erodes the 15th Amendment to the Constitution, giving Black people the right to vote. The For the People Act passed the U.S. House of Representatives, but it was not even given a hearing in the Senate. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell used the filibuster to prevent the bill's passage and to prevent even debate about the bill. The filibuster would require a vote of 60 for passage instead of a simple majority. Think about that. The filibuster was used to prevent even a debate, which would have included compromise legislation advanced by Senator Joe Manchin. Senator McConnell has stated in no uncertain terms that the filibuster would be used to defeat any progressive legislation on the Biden agenda. This is anti-democratic and autocratic. It allows the minority party to defeat the proposals of the majority party without discussion, debate, or even the opportunity for amendment. The filibuster should be reformed or eliminated because no party, neither Republican nor Democrat, should be the party that has the power to prevent legislation introduced by the majority party from even being voted on. The filibuster is a relic of the Jim Crow era that is not in the Constitution. The framers considered and rejected supermajority requirements to pass legislation. The filibuster is only a Senate rule. Protecting the freedom of the American people, all of us, is much more important than preserving a Senate rule. We ask you, Senators Carver and Coons, to take the lead in moving the Senate beyond obstructionism by working with your colleagues to fix the filibuster so that it cannot be the barrier that it is now. It must be modified so that we can pass the For the People Act to ensure that the United States is the democracy it claims to be and to prevent a minority from turning in this country into an autocracy. In closing, I would like to say the time to act is now. As election attorney Mark Elias reminds us, history will judge us by what we did at this moment to protect our voting rights and democracy. Thank you.